Hi, so this is just a continuation with our previous discussion about humanity as the stewards of the world. So we are here on the second topic, which is all about the universe in your hands. The universe always finds a way to fascinate us, although the unknown about it is still much overwhelming. The human mind has already known quite a lot, at least in our perspective. With the plethora of information and knowledge we have acquired throughout our history, the spotlight then moves to the questions of what we ought to do with all this information. So ano nga ba ang dapat nating gawin sa mga informations na ating na-acquire about our universe? We are very small creatures, nothing compared to the vastness of space. We only have one world to inhabit, and this means we have to find our role in it. So we need to realize our role in this planet. Every day, we can find depressing news in the television about how the world is becoming less and less inhabitable. Many scientists are now trying to look at other planets where humanity could possibly migrate. This fact entails that there is a responsibility on you as a human being to do what you can in order to save the planet so you can also save yourself. There have been many teachings and thousands of ideologies that pertains to man's relationship with nature. And one of it is from the Judeo-Christian perspective that there is a God who made the world and that he made human beings in order to take care of this world. Itong Judeo, I don't know if it's Judeo or Judeo. Judeo Christian perspective. So, again, in this perspective, it is emphasized here that there is a God who made the world and that he also made human beings in order to take care of this world. Saint Thomas Aquinas, a philosopher from the medieval period, called God as the summum bonum. This translates to the highest good. Although Aquinas wasn't the first philosopher who coined the term, his view of God as the highest good is evident in his writings. In the ethics, in the study of ethics, the summum bonum is seen as the end goal of life. That people go on with their lives in search of it. Some define it as happiness or virtues, but in Christian perspective of Saint Thomas, it was God. He looked at life as a journey given by God, and that our goal in every action we perform should be about the fulfillment of God's will. Following this notion, an idea that God created man in order to become his stewards, his caretakers of the world, means that you and me ought to do what we can to nurture and save the environment. Since God has given man the ability to think, this entails that you also have the responsibility to take care of the other creatures he made. Similarly, the Christian perspective could also be found in the writings of Saint Augustine of Hippo. Augustine also saw that a union with God is the object of life. Augustine's main point was on his advocate of many virtues that would purify one's soul in order to be worthy of a union with God. The Judeo-Christian perspective of the theologians rests on the idea that man would be rewarded by God in heaven if he lives his life in the mortal world in accordance to his will. Behind this perspective, we can conclude that your care for nature and God's creation would please Him. Hence, you would be rewarded in the afterlife. So that is on the Judeo-Christian perspective class, that since we are created in the image of God and we are considered as the stewards and caretakers of our planet, then we have the responsibility to take care of the living things around us. And in return, in the afterlife, we will be rewarded because we do our responsibility as human beings and as a steward. From a secular standpoint, we could look at the ethical school of thought. So, kung kanina, that is all about Judeo-Christian perspective. Now we are in the secular standpoint. So, this secular standpoint have this school of thought, which is what we call as utilitarianism. 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 Okay, that's good. Generally speaking, utilitarianism states that an action is considered right and good if one can get a use or a utility out of it. So that means ang usa daw ka butang or ang isa ka action, maayo siya once makakuha ta og benefit or makakuha ta og makakuha tag benefit ato a certain action. This is a form of consequentialism, which is a view that examines the consequence of an action. The father of modern utilitarianism, Jeremy Bentham, so siya yung father of utilitarianism. So, Jeremy Bentham thought that man is governed either by pleasure or pain. So, according to him, man is governed by either pleasure or pain. For him, the goal of life is to maximize the pleasure and minimize the pain. Well, Jeremy Bentham has actually the point, diba? That's what we are seeking, to have a comfortable life and minimize pain or struggle. If one is facing a certain moral dilemma, he or she should look at whether the consequence would bring pleasure or pain. If it is the former, he should act on it. If it is the latter, he shouldn't. So, it just emphasize nga, if ang isa ka butang makahatag sa imo og kaayuhan, then go for it. But if ang isa ka action makahatag sa imo og dili siya makahatag og benefit sa imo or magkasakit ka or wala kang makuha nga maayo sa isa ka butang, then you should not go for that action, or you should not do certain actions that would lead you to have pain or to acquire those stressful life. If we keep on the utilitarian approach in terms of our relationship with the world, so you can ask yourself whether nurturing the environment is in favor with your interest or not. Does caring for nature maximize my pleasure and minimize my pain? What would be the results of taking care of the environment? How about the results of neglecting it? Using the utilitarian perspective, we can form a conclusion that caring for the environment results to a good quality of life, and that neglecting it also affects us in a negative way. So that is on the utilitarian approach. So if if caring for the environment results to a good quality of life, then we should do or we should act on it. Dapat mabuhat ang mga butang na makatabang para ma-preserve ang ating environment. Now, if we neglect our environment, it will also neglect us or it will also affect us in a negative way. So therefore, we should not do actions that would harm our Mother Nature. Another philosophy we can take to guide our behavior towards our world are the ancient Chinese philosophical teachings of Confucius. In his work, The Analects, wait. So the Analects, the wise teacher thought of one of the major ethical guidelines that is revered until today, which is the Golden Rule. Now, the Golden Rule reminds us to take action only in things we also want to be done to ourselves. So, dapat mabuhat lang tayo mga butang nga gusto po da masinati po na or kanang mapadulong or kanang kung padulong na good gyapon sa imo ha. You should do things na tan-aw nimo mao po na gusto ni mo nga buhaton sa ubang tao para sa imo ha. So the general rule reminds us to take action only on things we also want to be done to ourselves. Many beliefs have almost the same teachings, but Confucianism starts it with opposing action. What you do not want to be done to you, don't do unto others. When Confucius was asked by his students on a single word that could be used as a guideline on how one should live his life, he replied, reciprocity, referring to the Golden Rule. Tama po si Confucius, class. Now, if you don't want something to be done to you, then do not do this thing towards others, especially if makadaot siya. Diba? In times of natural calamities, when lives are lost, the general public often jump to conclusions that it is the way. Nature takes revenge for all the bad actions we've taken against it. It seems to be a reminder that we are always at nature's mercy. And if we are going to apply the Confucian teaching on the Golden Rule, it would show that we should not destroy the environment, so it would not destroy us too. Taking it on a positive light, we can conclude that we should take care of our environment, so it would take care of us as well. A mind and action for ecological stability results to less pollution, less flooding, or none at all, or a stop on global warming and other great effects of a sustainable environment. Well, the Golden Rule of Confucius was very applicable in in terms of taking care of our environment, especially, I really believe on the saying that nature will give you back. So there is karma on everything, or there is, you will reap what you sow. So kung ano yung itinanim mo, yun din yung aanhin mo. So, or aanihin mo. So therefore, we should sow or we should sow good actions towards environment so we will reap the benefits of our actions. According to some writers, the desire for progress, development, and industrialization has made man destroyer of his environment. That is really very relevant because at some point there are times that man becomes so selfish. He tends to aim for a, a progressive way of life, industrialized way of life, tapos we are not thinking that we are harming already the environment. The desire for greater wealth has made us to blind to the true wealth that nature provides us. This then prompts us to think ways, no matter how little, to save our world. And these philosophies, the Judeo-Christian perspective, utilitarianism, and Confucianism, show us that a good and better world is in our hands. So utilitarianism is also known for the maxim, the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people, which advocates for the well-being of as many people as possible. So, in order to save the world, even though starting on just a little actions, we can take account these ideas coming from the different philosophies, just like the Judeo-Christian perspective, utilitarianism, and Confucianism, because these philosophies really gives us great informations on how we should manage and how we should take care of our environment. Okay, so let me just share to you this philosopher. So famous kani siya during the medieval period. So Saint Thomas Aquinas is one of the famous philosophers before, and his works were focused on Summa Theologia, Summa Contra Gentiles, and he is famous about his sayings of better to illuminate than merely to shine, to deliver to others contemplated truths than merely to contemplate. Okay, so let me just check. So, ako lang i-continue class ang discussion sa unit sa topic 3 since mubo lang man po ni siya. So, topic 3 talks about the universe in our hands. So, the last lesson talked of our roles and what we can do as an individual. However, man can do so much more in a collective manner. As a whole, human beings made big impact into the world. There are even studies that suggest that the world would seem an entirely different place if humans ceased to exist. So, if wala daw ang humans sa ato ang planet Earth, then it would be a different thing, or lahi po daw ang appearance sa ato ang planet. In this lesson, we will tackle more on serious issues about the effects of our existence on this planet for the purpose of contemplation and understanding of what can we all do better. So let us start these on the informations given here. We are not ignorant to the term vegetarianism. It is defined as the practice of non-consumption of meat or products that come from animals like milk or eggs. So part of the discussion of environmental ethics is the questioning of the practice of human beings in the consumption of non-human animals. Animals are also sentient beings. They can sense and feel. They can also experience pain and pleasure. If they are capable of, let me just underline this. Sentient beings. If they are capable of experiencing pain and pleasure, this means they are also entitled to well-being and a fulfilling life. However, in many places around the world, animals are being slaughtered for food. Some of them are abused and needs rescuing. An example of their criticism to this kind of treatment to them are the condemnation being received by the Yunnan Dog Meat Festival in China every year. So, Chinese are popular about this tradition of cooking dog's meat during their Yulin Dog Meat Festival. This kind of issue raises concerns not only for dogs who are slaughtered in the festival, but also extends to other animals like cows, chickens, pigs, lambs, sharks, etc. that are slaughtered every day for human consumption and pleasure. Philosopher and ethicist Peter Singer argues strongly that it seems non-human animals are facing discrimination equitable to sexism or racism among human beings, which is called as speciesism. Accordingly, this suggests that when humans make decisions that would affect the environment, sentient beings ought to be put into consideration. Kasi nga, other animals that also rely on their existence or on their habitat towards the environment are also being affected, especially if human considers like building um, new industrialized properties, or if they will convert green forest into agricultural fields, then what would happen to the animals who live there? So of course, these sentient beings are the number one um, receiver of our actions that we are doing towards our environment. Focusing on just human beings itself, Singer in 2008 documentary called Examined Life questioned the morality of a highly capitalistic society. Well, that is what we are experiencing now. Our society moves forward into being a highly capitalist. So that means they are more focused on gaining revenues, gaining assets, or gaining makagain sila ginansya sa ilang mga business, without considering how their businesses or how their trades affect the surrounding living things. This means we could question the morality of being able to purchase highly expensive designer clothes or bags or shoes, while the money could instead be used to feed malnourished children in Africa, or to install deep wells in places with no access to clean water, etc. For Singer, if it is within our capability to alleviate the pain of another, or to reduce the pain of another being without causing another form of pain to everyone else or to ourselves, then we have a moral obligation to alleviate that pain. This could be one of the main reasons why billionaires, celebrities, and businessmen We're doing philanthropic works, just like donating to charitable institutions and instilling corporate responsibility on their respective businesses. So that is the reality of a highly capitalistic society. I mean, there are just those individuals who can afford for a luxury life, spending cash anytime, anywhere, as much as they want. And on the other side of the world, there are those children who are starving. There are those children who are not able to go to school even though they have dreams of finishing, or even though they have goals of pursuing their education, but since they don't have money, then they just choose to work instead of going to school and pursuing their career. There are lots of problems in our society that could be helped by somebody who are gifted in terms of financial status, in terms of emotional um, well-being, mental well-being, and many more. Singer's approach may be utilitarian in nature as it appeals to consequences brought to humans, to animals, and to the world itself. However, there is also a deontological approach in ethics. This approach rests on the intrinsic value of an action instead of the consequences. So, meron daw tinatawag na deontological approach sa ethics. So, this approach focuses on the intrinsic value of an action instead of the consequences. So, instead of focusing on the consequences of a certain action, ang ginafocus sa deontological approach was the intrinsic value. Now, for example, caring for the environment is right, not because it would result to a better life for us, but because caring for the environment is the right thing to do by itself. There is an intrinsic value to taking care of the environment. Hence, doing what is right does not stop when there are no benefits anymore. It doesn't stop because it's not stopping us from being right by itself. So, merely class ang gina-focus lang or ang gina-emphasize sa deontological approach is that there is an intrinsic value, or an action is considered to be right because it is right by itself. You're not focusing on doing that certain action because you can gain benefit, but instead, that is the best and that is the right thing to do. So that is on the deontological approach. This idea strikes our own ideologies as well as makes us think twice of the decisions that we will carry out to the environment. It makes us more careful and prudent of the choices we make towards the world we live in. We could even practice a certain ideology that is based on careful examination of what is good for us and the world itself. As we know, the resources that come from nature is not unlimited. Yes, dili jud siya unlimited class kay naa merong hangganan ang ating mga nakukuha sa ating kapaligiran. And in fact, it is declining in amount fast as the population of human beings continue to increase. Yes, when there is a rapid growth of human population, then resources would also decline because humans depend their basic needs from the environment. So if there is a large numbers of people tapos meron lang limited resources, then what would happen to other humans out there na wala na access sa mga resources or sa natural resources? Then they wouldn't survive. So that is a big realization for us to, be mindful of our actions and do little things that would contribute um, goodness for our environment. As rational, conscious creatures, this puts us in a position of responsibility. Thus, we ought to respond as a whole to the challenges that the environment is facing these days. The challenge of climate change, ecological dilapidation, pollution, and endangerment and extinction of species, etc., need a collective, constructive response from human beings, which we could all contribute to in terms of policies, activism, and progressive projects, and so on. This is because the universe, the world, is in all of our hands. So, we should start doing today, actions that can contribute goodness to our environment. So again, Peter Albert David Singer. So, sikat ni siya, or we just discussed him a while ago. So, siya ang nag-propose atong, I guess, deontological approach. I know, mali dahi. Ang dahi is about, iyang documentary is The Examined Life. Tapos katong iyang question is the morality of a highly capitalistic society. So, Peter Albert David Singer, major works was all about animal liberation, practical ethics, famine, affluence, and morality. So, he is famous of the saying, all the arguments to prove man's superiority cannot shatter this hard fact. In suffering, the animals are our equals. So, diba, nice kayo ang saying. It just talk about, the saying itself emphasizes that man's superiority, dili daw niya dili niya ma-equate ang sufferings na ginasinati sa atong animals sa palibot. Kung unsa nag-suffer ang animals, ingana po ta nag-suffer sa ilaha because they are sentient beings. They can feel pain and they can feel pleasure. They can sense, so it's just that animals don't have a rational thinking. So that is the discussion for the topic 3 of our Unit 5. Hope you will have a blissful day.